Hi, I'm Jenny Tschiesche. I'm also known as the Lunchbox Doctor, and today I'm going to be making a flapjack. Now, the flapjack typically is sort of one of those foods you think, well, most kids like it. It's a really good energy food, but if you look at the ingredients in the shop-bought flapjacks, you'd be quite horrified to see some of the things that are added that really don't need to be there. So this is a slightly healthier flapjack. I call it my protein-rich flapjack. So the reason it's got protein in it is because I'm going to use some seeds. Now, not every child in the world loves seeds. In fact, I would say most of them don't. So what we're going to do is whiz the seeds up. So they can't really taste them. They certainly can't see them. We're going to whiz them up into a powder. So you're going to switch on a food processor, throw in about 75 grams. So it's quite a lot of seeds, but they're a really good high protein food. They're also rich in zinc. Now, a little known fact is that sometimes children can be a little bit fussy when they're eating because they are naturally low in zinc. You know this if they get ill a bit more regularly than their friends perhaps, or if they have multiple white marks on their fingernails. So a really good way of getting zinc into them is seeds. Great way to get seeds into them is in this flapjack. So we're just going to whiz those seeds up to a powder. So full speed. That is pretty much all we need to do. Now let me show you what I've done there. So if you're used to using something like ground almonds in baking, you'll be used to that sort of consistency. So we've got that there. Right, we've got our seeds. Then we're going to do our sort of traditional method of making flapjack. We're going to melt some butter. A nice warm pan, it's been warming away there, so we're going to melt this butter down. So this is just normal, organic butter. Melt that down. So that's quite warm actually. I'm going to see if I can turn that down a little bit. Right, there we go. So we're melting that down. And to that, we're going to add some coconut sugar. You can use any kind of unrefined sugar. I'm all about not using processed foods. That traditional white sugar is quite refined and is quite processed. This sugar will release sugar into the blood system and to the bloodstream a little bit more slowly. And being unrefined, it just means it's a lot easier for the body to process at a much slower rate. So we're going to add in some coconut sugar and melt that down. The final thing we're going to add to this mixture is a little bit of molasses. Now again, when we make that white refined sugar that we're probably all more familiar with than any other kind, we leave the goodness in the plants and we want to take that out, and that's where the molasses is, which is fantastic because we've got molasses here. You'll find this in a health food store, you will find it in some supermarkets. If you can't find it, the closest thing is black treacle. Now molasses contains chromium. Chromium releases sugar, again helps with your body releasing sugar into the blood much more slowly. So the molasses is going to go in and give that lovely depth of flavour to this flapjack. So that's the molasses in there. So we've got our lovely wet ingredients there. And then into that we need to think about adding our traditional oats. Now oats is what we would use in a traditional flapjack, but many children these days have a problem with perhaps gluten or other grains. So what you could use is gluten-free oats, or furthermore, if oats are a problem, quinoa flakes work really, really well if you want a gluten-free alternative. So we're just going to throw in 175 grams of oats, and then we are going to throw in some dried fruit. If we're using something like apricots, then cut them up a little bit finer. One further note, if you're using dried fruit, try and find dried fruit that hasn't got loads of preservatives in it. The apricots that you buy should not be bright orange. If they are bright orange, they contain sulfur dioxide. That's a preservative that has been linked, if children have breathing difficulties, to sort of asthma. It can make it much worse. So go for the preservative-free dried fruit. I'm using raisins, but if you use big fruit, then just chop it up into smaller bits. And then stir. Stir your oats or your quinoa flakes into that lovely, delicious mixture of unrefined sugar, butter. You could also, if you want to make this dairy-free, use a coconut oil as well, and into your molasses, and then mix that until all of those oats are thoroughly covered and coated in that mixture. And then I am actually going to put it into a brownie tin, and the reason I do that is because I feel that children are more likely to eat something if they have that sense of ownership. It's mine, this is my portion. And brownie tins are nicely sort of allocated, if you like. You've got a space for each individual flapjack. Now if you think that's too large for your child, what you can do is bake it in the brownie tin and simply chop it in half. So I'm just going to make sure that every single little oat in here is coated with that delicious mixture of butter, molasses and coconut sugar, and we are almost there. Okay, then let me just do that there like that. Okay, I'm going to use, let me see if I've got a fork in here, so I can just make sure it comes off the wooden spoon. It's all lovely and sticky and it smells amazing. So into the brownie tin and just push it down. I'll come back and make sure that that's properly secured in there. And the second portion into the brownie tin, pop it down. And I'm probably going to get about 6 out of here, I think. But just perfect. And these are ideal for lunch boxes. They're going to go into the oven at about 180 degrees. And they're going to go in there for about 20 minutes. And once they come out, you really do need to just leave them to cool. However tempting it is to try and take one out of the pan, they need to be left to cool, otherwise they'll just be crumbly. Makes a really nice granola, but that's not what you're aiming for. You're aiming for some lovely flapjacks to pop into the children's lunch boxes. They last for about 3 days, so, well, not in my house, but in theory, they last for about 3 days. So then you can just put them into an airtight container and try and make sure that they have maybe 1 a day in the lunchbox, but a really good filling portion of protein-rich flapjack, something lovely and sweet to go into their lunchboxes, and they are just divine. I get some fantastic feedback on this on my Facebook page, as people seem to love this recipe, and they can personalise it. You know, once you've got the basis of the recipe, you can make a slightly more Christmassy version. You could put some cranberries in there and a little bit of mixed spice. If you want to do slightly different versions, you can use, like I say, the quinoa flakes. You can use coconut oil to make it a dairy-free version. You take that little bit that's trying to wander away. So we've got 6 flapjacks there. They're going to go in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes till they're just lovely and golden brown on top. We leave them to cool and then we'll take them out and they can go straight into the lunchbox. So if you've enjoyed that recipe and you want similar recipes, please do go to lunchboxdoctor.com, join me on my Facebook page, Lunchbox Doctor, or if you want other recipes like this or from other chefs, which are fantastic, go to simplygoodfoodtv.com.
Shutterstock Music.